I'm going to start the same way I always do. I remember one day when I was looking for speakers to come to my radio show, Business Rockstars, and I was floating around on LinkedIn, and this Sasha Strauss guy popped up. I didn't know him. I wasn't connected to him. And I started looking at his profile, and what really popped up to be interesting was, besides being a teacher at one university, being UCLA, he was also a teacher at USC, and then I think he was also a teacher at either Davis or Chapman. I think it was Chapman, maybe, right? It was like, wait a second, they're all competitive like universities, and he was teaching at them. And then I decided I'm just going to go watch a few of his talks, and I was like drawn in. This guy owned me. He could talk about the most mundane thing in the world and turn it into something that I needed to know more about. And I reached out to him. He came to Business Rockstars in his suit. He always had a vest on, his suit, and it was hotter than hell in the studio. But he was there sweating to the oldies and just dispensing insane information. And I realized that this is a unique individual who can take issues and problems of the world and find easy solutions, at least to communicate them to be easy, to make it so we could understand it and help change the planet around those problems. And I'm honored to have him join us. Innovation Protocol is the name of his company. He's based in Los Angeles, and that's Sasha Strauss. Sasha, it's great to have you with us again.
Thanks, Ken. I appreciated what you just said. It meant a lot to me to hear how you just described it, but I do feel like I thrive thinking about hard problems and looking for easy or positive solutions to them. So thank you for, I feel known, I feel heard.
You know, by the way, just to let you know, the story that I think sticks out for almost all of us was how you got people to believe and accept that worked in waste management, that they are critical on saving the planet and making it a better place. And the correlation to it, and by the way, there was no BS, it was legit. But you took something that really sounded like a shitty job and turned it into something that was almost similar to living on Mount Athos in Greece, saving the planet. So it was pretty powerful. It really was.
Thanks.
What's on your mind right now? What's going on?
Well, couple things from winter is coming to I have to slap myself every day and say long game, long game, long game. I get wrapped up in the news of the time or a business or client that I'm working with and what their business is doing or not doing. And so I start looking at my toes again. And so I'm working really hard to like lift my head up and make 6-month, 9-month, 12-month, 18-month decisions, despite what I hear about vaccines by a certain date or any of this other stuff. Even though I want to believe it and I want our
1 year to somewhat normality, 1 year at least.
So,
period.
Yeah, I don't like that, but I'm reconciling it, and I have to give myself credit that when I look back the last 6 months and how I made business decisions for my 25 employees, I was good. It was good of me to play that long game decision-making process. It paid out. It paid out in a lot of different ways that I couldn't have known while I was making the decision. But now that I see the impact of it, I just thank my lucky socks that I did it.
Have you maintained all 25 employees?
I brought our workforce down by 3 because there were 3 people who provided a service that was new to our business. Just for simplification, we do 5 core things, and there were these 3 folks working on this 6th new, important, innovative thing. I knew that in the near term that wasn't going to manifest, and even though it was important to the future of my business, I was trying to understand the nature of the problem we were all confronting. And so with kindness and care, with compensation and computer, I let them move out of the business in a way that they could all start their own 3 businesses. And by reducing my headcount slightly and then making some operational decisions spend-wise, obviously we are a traveling organization. We spend 1/3 or 50% of our time on an airplane in an Uber. There's a lot of cost reductions there. So we were able to not only sustain ourselves, but actually grow.
Do you agree that Zoom is here to stay, that this way of business, even on the other side of COVID, Zoom will be an acceptable business model?
Not this clunky technology restrained awkwardness right now where it's like, is it okay that I'm in this room or that you're doing that, or, and to that end, I think that this is always going to be a supplement, hybrid complement to the special times that are face-to-face. So what I've noticed for clients that have, let's say, 20,000 employees or more, they don't care if I sit across the quad from them. They want a face-to-face meeting. And so what am I doing? I'm driving 2.5 days across the country to get to them to have that face-to-face meeting. But I get it. There's a time and a place for it. I'll give you another key example. I run my business with a colleague, a complementary mind, someone who doesn't do what I do, doesn't think like I do, so that when we make decisions, there's no duplication. There's just either something to lean on or another way to look at something. Anyway, so we're sort of reflecting on all the decisions that we had made over the last 6 months. And it was so interesting because I came at some really personal decisions for our organization, like what we believe about the future and when we're going to be together face to face again. And he came at it with like, okay, we have this office space. What do we do with 6,500 square feet for the next 18 months? And our lease term is up. Is this optimal for us to depart from? And so what was great about that sort of dual rail contemplation about our business was we made decisions that only I could have brought to the table, and we made decisions that only John could have brought to the table. But looking at our business with that forward view enabled us to not only endure what is going on, but I would say come out of this stronger, better, faster, smarter, and displacing some of our big competitors.
You off some of that space that was on Wilshire.
We still have it. Yes, it's in Koreatown, and Koreatown, for those of you not in Los Angeles, is it's a transition neighborhood. It had its great desirabilities about it, but like many cities in Los Angeles, it has its challenges that, just to be really, really straightforward, some of my employees are scared to walk into the office because of the occupants around the office. And so that immediately gets in the way of my ability to run a business that is inclusive.
That's tough then. So you still maintain the environment. And are people going into the office?
Oh, and I'm so sorry, Ken. I wanted to put an endpoint on your original question, which was, do I think that this Zoom thing is here to stay? I went off on a tangent talking about this hybrid solution.
I'm not done with that, so I do want to go a little deeper in that, but continue.
Well, I just want to say, like, why do I even need an office? Think about why you need an office. Yes, there needs to be a place where you get your work done, but if you have coworkers and other folks that are collaborating to run your organization, they do need some togetherness. But the way that we used to look at an office was, how do I provide an environment that the maximum number of people can exist in at the same time? Was there a question?
Sorry about that. No, go ahead.
Okay. And the maximum number of people can participate in this, rigorous place. In fact, people would walk into your office, and what would the first thing that they would do? What would they do? They would assess the number of people in the space. That I don't think is ever going to happen again. That is actually like kind of a stupid way to run a business, In fact, so now that we have this distributed workforce, we're going to have these collection spots. We look at offices as a place for people to collect and commune on certain tasks. And then Zoom or an adaptation of Teams will absolutely be where 7 out of 10, 9 out of 10 of conversations are had from this point forward.
But isn't it interesting now, since Zoom can somewhat still be accepted, where if you're in Los Angeles, you almost have to Zoom to a meeting that might literally be across the street or across the country or across the planet. And it's the same thing. So now we can find clients comfortably in Mumbai or Singapore or London because the competition across the street has to do the same thing we have to do across the country.
It's really amazing. I'm actually kind of inspired right now because for the first time in history, 7 billion people can actually be micro businesses, enterprising, connecting, and selling to virtually anywhere, anyone, anytime. It's amazing, 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 amazing that Granny's knit hat can absolutely warm a head on another continent. And that doesn't require massive infrastructure or venture capital. All the tools and technologies and devices are in hand. And it's like so neat and inspiring to think about how just our comfortability in this channel, the ability to like show up and get stuff done through this channel is going to lubricate the connection, make much more relationships happen much more faster. Yes, less face-to-face relationships, but way, 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 way more relationships that you can lean on and trust. That's exciting to me.
All right, sorry about this. I'm trying to figure out whose mics, including my own. Sasha, I didn't mean to mute you. Hang on, I got to find you. Where did Sasha go? Sasha, I see you. Can you unmute yourself there?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Hey, so Sasha, what are the new etiquettes when it comes to doing business remotely, like we are now?
Oh, well, there's an expectation that you're not fumbling through this. This is something that you're showing up to on the regular, so you have this kind of worked out. I'll tell you, that's, the old, half of the job is showing up. It's really amazing what I have seen, big deals, new onboards, new partnerships, simply because, again, as I've said in other metal conversations, that showing up, like, you get this, you understand that it's the medium of business now, you're not annoyed by it, you're not sneaking around trying to do it, you get that this is how business is done. That is showing a forward-looking view. It's showing that you are not like waiting for yesterday. Everyone agrees yesterday is not going to be here. There will never be. Okay, so great. So when you operate like it was yesterday, it looks like your business is not forward-thinking enough. It's not leaning in or innovative enough. So to answer your question shortly, Ken, what this silly channel has become is, ready? Do you mean business? That's it. Showing up effectively in this channel implies whether or not you are serious about doing business. And I have a very fluttery view of the word business. I think a nonprofit is a beautiful business, an individual is a beautiful business, a big corporation is a business. It's a living, breathing human system. So I'm just saying that showing up in this channel like you mean business is what is absolutely creating business.
Got it. Okay, so guys, Sasha Strauss is joining us. If you have a question, comment, or idea, pop it inside the chat and we're going to dive into it. So Sasha, where I wanted to go with today is I want to start with a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt. And you know the quote, but I feel it's so important to discuss now. And that is, great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, and small minds discuss people. And I feel like right now we have been in a small-minded world, and those are the easiest people to manipulate. And because there's so many small-minded and average-minded people, they've become the masses. And the ones that are the great minds who want to discuss ideas and things that change the planet, it's hard for them to move. With the cancel culture that's out there, that the small-minded people are going after, it's hard to make really important decisions in the corporate space. I don't want to talk about politics, but in the corporate space or in the planet-changing space, it's hard because the small-minded people are creating this environment of turning things off. I know it's kind of deep, but it's important.
No, I appreciate it. It's the point of relationships like this. We're supposed to kind of prod a little bit. My gut says, of course it's hard. If it were easy, we'd all be running kingdoms, and we're not. This is absolutely hard stuff to work on. It's historically hard, harder than maybe any other topics we've ever dealt with as a species. So, okay, got it. That's fine. And not only is it hard, but we're organically lazy species. So when you say, think about these really, really hard things, moving these really, really hard mountains, of course our mind, body, soul unit is like, or eat this bag of Doritos right now. And we get that there's something about not trying to move those mountains. So I just want to put out there that, of course, great ideas and great minds require heavy lifts and the time to lift them. And I don't want to deny that that's okay. It's why the master's journey on the side of the cliff in the snowstorm to get to the pagoda, there's a point there, is that like not everybody deserves that path. Not everybody can handle that path. So of course, the big ideas are heavy to lift and hard to get people to act on. But of course, that is what makes them worth climbing, worth acting on. Now, to the small minds comment, that we are all small-minded. We each have our case of small-mindedness. So before we decide that there's a pile of people over there with consciousnesses less capable than ours, just acknowledge what you did selfishly over the last 3 days, what you ate, what you masturbated to, what you didn't do, what you thought you were supposed to be.
I actually masturbated to food.
Well, that's fine, but I just want everybody to stop calling other people small-minded and recognize that we each have a animal instinct, lazy behavior. And when we right? Wrap a circle around everyone else other than us and say, oh, well, you can't, or you don't know how to actualize those capabilities. We're not going to, it will not work. We're not going to fix this. We're just going to be mired in this quagmire because of the way that we are categorizing people. So simply put, everybody has the ability to be a great mind and to contemplate if they've got resources and time and have the will to work hard. All of us are small-minded. We all want to discuss petty things and want short-term stimuli and want to know the latest and greatest about certain things because it's easy and it fulfills whatever freaking thing is running us. So that's my guttural response to you, Ken, is that we're on both sides of this.
Yeah, but I want you to think about a brand. Guys, I'm sorry about my sound. It sounds so loud now. I want you to think about a brand. A brand has to think at an elevated point, don't they? They have to be thinking about the events, or excuse me, the ideas. The Patagonia has to talk about the game-changing idea of moving the planet forward. These companies, these brands can't be discussing the petty things, and they have to take risks. They have to say Colin Kaepernick should be, a Hall of Famer, where it's going to piss off half of maybe the NFL audience out there, but they have to take a risk. How do you move forward knowing that there's a culture out there that will cancel you?
Okay, so tell me, wave at me if my mic is not working right.
No, you're fine. I think it's my mic.
It's okay. We like you, so it doesn't matter. So when it says that, when you think that you need to go climb to the top of a mountain and displace a sword that people have quested for centuries, nobody needs you to do that shit. We just need someone on the ground fighting for ethics, operational morality. You don't need to come up with something fanciful, costumed, celebrated by some superhero. You don't need that. I know it might be fun for you. It might be thrilling for you to come up with some cause that says you're going to keep the planet spinning. But I'm telling you, we don't need that. We literally need to look at you as a person who's running a business in a way that is endearing and enduring. And that in itself, that worthy quest of being good and leading by example, that's all we need right now. And there's no cancel culture for that. What is being canceled are these huge paints, these grand decrees. Oh, we're this organization and we don't believe that these people should be wronged. All right, of course you're being canceled. Of course, when you try to climb to the mountain and grasp the sword, someone else is like, no, you shouldn't get after that. We don't need it. And there's no space for it. The only space is within the space of the people that are around you, the 7, 10, 12, 20 people that are affected by your business execution. You only need to worry about them and their receptivity to you. And then ask yourself, what save the world shit do you want to do that those 7 people are going to care about? And then just stop right there. And just stop trying to win Twitter or something, doing something audacious with your care. Focus on what the 7 people around you care about and do something close to you, and you will not be canceled. You will not be canceled.
Wow. You're saying, it almost sounds like stay average. That's what it sounds like on what you're saying.
Well, there's a concept in philanthropy, and it basically says, excuse my explanation of this, folks. I apologize, it might be clunky, but here, the philosophy basically says, okay, you want to give? You want to give, huh? All right. Well, when you know who you're giving the money to, and the person knows you back, they know who gave the money, that's one kind of giving. Well, when the person doesn't know, you don't know who you're giving the resource to. They might know who you are as a famous person. That's another kind of giving that's important. But the best kind of giving is when you don't know and the recipient doesn't know. That's the kindest, most beautiful kind of giving, because then you're giving just because you believe that you should be giving. Well, that shit doesn't get canceled. When you're giving to get the credit, of course people are calling you out for that. But when you're giving because you sincerely believe that you should, and you're using your core competency, you've heard me say this every single time I talk in metal. Don't do philanthropy you are not a master of. Whatever it is you are best at, that should be the only shit you give away, is what you are paid the most to do. And when you do that, and you do that to save the world, nobody can cancel you. It's an impenetrable barrier because it's coming from sincerely within you, and it's within your core capability to execute.
So give because you want to give, not give because you have a purpose or a reason to give. It's because inherently you feel it's necessary as in a person, but not strategic. People give because of strategy, because their name gets listed on the placard or they're recognized. That's the worst type of giving.
Well, it actually doesn't work. I mean, think about any of you looking at a logo quilt and saying, oh, yes, I'm going to patronize logo number 7 because they're on this collective, you know, they're in this magazine. That doesn't get people to step up and buy from you. I'm very clear about my philanthropy. My philanthropy gets people to buy shit from me. It creates profit for my business. It creates employee opportunity that my employees love working on and feeling career proud about it. But the best part is that when all of this social justice questioning came down on all of us, I didn't have to make anything up. I just said, well, look back at our social justice record and let's just, you guys want to keep doing that? And a whole panel of people came together. They audited all of our social justice actions and they were basically like, yeah, we got to keep doing all that shit. We didn't realize that that's why you were asking us to do all this stuff, but now we get why we're doing it. And, you know, so guess what? I didn't get canceled. Nobody called me out for being a white, straight Jewish guy from fucking Los Angeles.
And you're not actually talking about money. You're talking about resources as a philanthropy.
Resources are all we have. Money is so relative. What's a dollar to you, man? I don't know what you mean when you say a dollar, you know, and you speak Bitcoin, so whatever that is, right? It's all relative currency depending on how much you're committed to it. The one thing that we do understand mutually is time. This time you spend caring, that's what can be measured. That's what can be appreciated. And so I want you to use only high value time to care. That's the priority. That's what can be discussed in your social groups. That's what you can mention to shareholders or investors. That's the kind of stuff where they're like, oh, Sasha, you do brand strategy philanthropy. You help nonprofits with their brand strategies. Oh, well, now you get double credit. You're saving the world and you're working on what you're best at. That's valuable to me.
Let's go to our first question. Michael, you are unmuted. Go for it.
Thank you. Hey, Sasha. I just want to say that your presentation at Metal during the Saturday Metal, that was the best Metal presentation I have ever seen. It was just a phenomenal example of great public speaking. Thank you for that. I wanted to raise this. I'm not trying to say that the point that you made just now was wrong, but this is just a thing that I'd love to hear you respond to, which is that Margaret Mitchell, she of course wrote Gone with the Wind, but it now has been found out that she was taking the money from her book and actually using it to fund the education of African American doctors secretly, because of the danger of the Klan, you know, physically canceling her, murdering her. So she did that secretly, but today Gone with the Wind has still been canceled. Isn't the principle that you're suggesting a little bit of a, I don't want to call it a pie in the sky, but are people really that good that the thing that you just referred to will in fact not happen if we just keep things secret?
Well, I respect what you're saying, Michael, and to hear that from another speaker means a lot. I appreciate your kind words about my delivery, so we just put that out. Thank you for enjoying it, and I'm glad it affected you. Listen, we need to care about something, and when an organization doesn't care about something, our minds wander and we wonder what they care about. You need to put something in that place. You have to fill the void of what it is you care about. So what I am implying is when you go about doing your goodwill work, when, you know, so Michael, you're a speaker, educator, internal inspirer, that's what I think that you should be doing with your philanthropy work, and not only doing it, but you don't have to brag about it. It will by nature get you credit. And I'm sorry that I wasn't more explicit about it. I was just trying to imply that when I do nonprofit work, it's not a marketing banner and I don't write it off my taxes. I'm doing it because I know that the goodwill that comes from it will create sticky coworkers. It will create people who want to stay close. So to just push back on your notion a little bit, Michael, I understand that when you do something like secretly fund a resource for an underrepresented group, that there's quite like to talk about this, is there tension? I'm asking you not to do anything that drastic. I'm asking you, as the great speaker you are, you training underrepresented, BIPOC communities on how to orate is the best possible thing you can do to save the world. That's what Michael is here to do, is to help other people communicate like he does. And until you recognize that, you're making temporary meals. And so that's what I want all of us to think about is don't go out there and try to say, I'm going to rectify this historical trauma. I'm going to work right here with what it is that I'm capable of. And that goodwill work will not be judged. It's unjudgeable, I believe. And I am a pie in the sky guy, Michael. So you got me.
By the way, Michael's new book coming out is all on rhetoric, just to give you an idea.
He's a rhetoric guy, so that's perfect.
Okay, let's go after
Thank you, Sasha.
Do you know who Scott Harrison is, Sasha?
Maybe. I mean, you've introduced me to a lot of good people.
He has a nonprofit called Charity Water.
Oh, yeah.
So Scott, he's speaking next week at Metal. I've had him speak a few times. And he runs a very interesting nonprofit that goes off and takes people's money that's completely dollar for dollar trackable on doing an implementation of finding water and creating wells in third world places like Nigeria, India, and you are able to track and follow your money. And he's found a way to get dollar matching on that. So if you put in $1, he'll find another way to get $1 to run the actual NGO. It's pretty brilliant, actually. So it's audacious, actually, I think, what Scott has done. It's audacious. He's done something I've never seen before in any type of NGO. Based upon what you're saying, you would give him the advice not to go at that level.
Okay, well, this is such a good discussion because there's a lot of this tit for tat kind of one for one, dollar for dollar stuff. Just everyone, that's not original. That has been happening for a very long time. It's the easiest way to get someone to try something they don't like is for them to understand that they get a second separate thing for free or at some discount. And that's the nature of the solution sell. That's the fries, Coke, and hamburger. It totally, totally works. So no wonder it's such a good way to trick people into being philanthropic, one for one or dollar for dollar matching. But let me just back out and just say, I agree that certain kinds of giving, like when I say I want to help the world find more drinkable water, it's very hard for me to understand what that means. But when you give me a trackable model that is, quote, dollar for dollar, oh, it's been gamified, got it, I can participate now, I can follow it. I understand why that's necessary. I follow something very similar to that when it comes to tree planting. It's something that's been a part of my mindset since I was a child. So I get that there's a way to watch that and manage it. But I just want to point out there that, yes, you can kind of gamify the acknowledgement and kind of get dollar for dollar credit for it. But just know that your number one competitor can too. Your number one competitor can also sort of match bottle for dollar or whatever the case might be. And then you quickly lose your cause front. You kind of become a player, not the player.
I like that you said gamify, because that's exactly what it is. It's a gamification type feel.
Yeah, that dollar. And by the way, that dollar for dollar, you can ask him. I suspect that it's not actually a literal dollar. It's
You're right.
Right?
We'll ask him. Okay, so I got a couple more things. Guys, please jump in because I could suck up all of Sasha's time, and I have done it in the past. So don't let me monopolize this. Please ask questions. I can't believe it. The other day I was talking to some younger people in their 30s, and they told me that Apple is the underdog. Apple's the underdog? It's the most valuable company in the world. How are they the underdog? Because, oh, well, you got Windows out there and you have Samsung and these are bigger. And they perceive Apple still being this company that's trying. And in my mind, it seems like that they don't fear Apple. They love Apple because it still hasn't, it's the little engine that will one day, and they don't realize it has. How does a company create that? Because to me, that's the ultimate level of branding where everyone still thinks you're the underdog, but you really are the dominant player.
Yes. Just to reconcile this in all of our minds, all other organizations are not like Apple, and therefore Apple's brand executions are not right for all other organizations. They have certain permissions because of their history, their founding, where their product shows up in our life every hour their product is present. That doesn't mean that your nectarine company isn't important. The problem is that you're only touching the nectarine every 2 or 3 days, and so therefore it doesn't have a significance to you. It doesn't have the uber presence. But to answer your question about youth today and why they don't see Apple as an intruder is because it is their channel. It is their conduit. It is the prism of their life. It is what they get to see the world through. So of course it is not constraining to them. Of course it is not getting in their way. In fact, they really see it the other way, which is if I stopped paying for this, I would see less light. I would see less, I'd have less understanding. And that's hard to create. Yeah, it takes 40 years to do it. And there's a lot of things that made it possible.
Wow, what an interesting way of saying it. It's almost Apple is like what Google was. It's a verb, but it's a noun and verb. It lives in dualities.
I think that you're right, there's a sort of a video channel of Apple to the youth of the day that is much like Google might be to the information seeker, yesterday, no question.
As you look at that brand, is there anything that you think is transferable? Oh. Not like the Nectarine company, which cracks me up that you even thought of a nectarine, but where we can take these 3 or 4 principles that Apple has done so well and throw it on top of our Little League baseball team, put it on top of our new startup, put it on our incubator. Is there some principles do you think are transferable?
Yes, I'm writing your question down.
By the way, if I ever stump you, could you say, "Oh, Ken, stumper, I'm done, move on."
Oh no, there was.
Darn it! I want to stump you on these.
Oh, okay, we can play Stump Strauss. No, that's fine. I would just, there was a third detail that I wanted to make sure to include. Okay. So 3 things that I would say we can all apply to our business, no matter what the environment. So Little League team or event production, content, whatever we might be. So 3 things that each one of us can apply to our business. The smartest thing that I think Apple ever does, has done, continues to do is that when they want to do something, they hire a partner to help them figure out how to do that thing. They don't expect themselves to be the master of every factor of their business. Yes, they do employ design, talent inside that little spaceship, but all their advertising, marketing, manufacturing, there are other organizations that they sought out and partnered with to deal with that risk and to have to be an expert at that thing. And so that's one thing that I really try to remind all Apple enthusiasts about is when you look at that Apple device, actually only a handful of things were made by Apple. But because they understand that helps them bring the best glass to the table or the best aluminum to the table, et cetera, it sets Apple up for less risk in the delivery of the ultimate interface platform. So I just want to say to you that, for example, Innovation Protocol does not code websites. Even though we're absolutely brand builders, brand definers, build your visual system, et cetera, when it comes to coding the website, we have specialist technicians, contractors, specialists that we bring on just to do that last mile stuff. What that's really helped me do is insulate my business from the ups and downs of web and the stress of web and the updating of web. That's in someone else's court. Just like when Apple's dealing with glass, it's someone else's problem to get the glass good and more better as it advances, right? So just putting it out there, one thing we can all learn from Apple is that they did not expect their organization or their brand to account for all things they could possibly be. They sought counsel and partners to bear that risk.
They were never number 1 when they came out. They were always number 2.
Well, I don't actually think that that's a sign of much, because they were number 1 at one thing, which was considering the user. They may have been number 2 in number of units sold, but that was because the number of units that were being sold of the alternate were machines that got certain jobs done. So of course, business had its say and got everyone an IBM AT, and fine, yes, of course there were more units about that. But that was, again, a kind of a hammer, like a tool to get a certain job done. Whereas what Apple was playing in number 2 was the relationship with your tool, the space to do something with that tool. And that was owned without question from the beginning.
So I would say the industry that's going through the hardest time right now, one of many, is education, is the universities, is the high-end Harvards to the local community college. because they sold the idea of community, coming to school, meeting one another, going through that entry level of individuality and learning how to socialize. And now they're saying, you know what, you're still gonna have to pay the same amount, but all of that's gone. It's all about learning, which I could probably turn on a few YouTube videos. I can watch you and learn. How does a school of yesterday compete with what's happening today?
Yes. Well, okay, so just to give a sense of where I'm speaking from, as someone who's employed by 5 different academic programs right now,
Right.
they are absolutely, as Ken is saying, going through an experience that they are, to say that they are shocked and awed and paralyzed is an understatement. For example, I would only say this to you so it's contextual for you. My class at one of the universities is the most profitable class. It's got the most number of people on the waiting list. It's the biggest class. And so I said to them, hey, I recognize that right now headcount is really important to your profitability and stability. I'll take one for the team. If you want me to teach another class, I told you I'd only teach 1 class a year for you. I'll teach a second online class for you. And their response was like, sorry, we don't even know how we're running our business unit right now. We have no sense of what we're supposed to do next. So I can't even tell you if we can have another class. And that to me was something really concerning, which was like, oh my gosh, you know so little about how your business runs that you can't make change or you can't adapt. And so my number one issue with academia is they have willed themselves forward with cause and research and compassion. And honestly, I'm telling you, every one of you runs better books. They've never turned around and said, are these funds organized or managed or planned? It's really, really astounding. So the challenge, of course, they absolutely have a population that is interested in consuming what they offer, but it requires them to kind of make new sandwiches a little bit. For example, to answer your question, Ken, my students are getting a lot of connection through this channel. Types of connection I could never, ever facilitate out of them in a classroom. Like, take this into consideration, everybody. In a room full of 77 really hungry minds, how many people get to speak? And not only how many people get to speak, but how many people's persona get glared at and understood? Not that many. You can only look at so many people at the same time. Yet right now, I'm looking at all 27 of you at the same time. That's different. Students are manifesting whole new behaviors because they can literally watch their classmates bob their head, wave their finger, you know, put up a hand plant, whatever the case might be. So it's really interesting. I would tell you that if universities could pivot, it would be worth the dollars they charge. But the problem is that they're not good camp counselors. They're super, super good at running academic protocols. And if that were what the crisis were about, then that would be awesome. But until they understand, is to start our conversation, come back full circle, until they're ready to show up in this channel like they mean business, we're going to see some giants fall in academia. It's going to be
Thomas, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I agree 100%. You know, that's my battle coming from industry, working in a large, I guess the largest, most bureaucratic system. So somebody from Redlands was sharing how it's really exposed that their margins were all in running a hotel, their dorms. And now that margin is gone, right? So the amount of failures I expect in the next few years is going to be enormous. Great opportunity, you know, for my local university to keep picking up the pieces and trying to find more entrepreneurial folks to redesign the way we connect with students, right? We just tried a 300-person Zoom, tried to learn, you know, what I learned from Ken, right? Tried to bring that to do a anti-racism Black healing event. And it was messy, but at least we're failing, right? And failing forward. So I want my colleagues to think, this is the way we'll get better. So let's learn from that.
Awesome, Thomas.
Thomas, what's your attendee size? How many students?
17,000.
17,000. And are you going back to all online starting what, next week or 2 weeks from now, or now?
We're in week 2. Our campus went 4% on campus with super cleaning. You know, we're doing everything sort of like the studios, right? It's very expensive, but for nursing, certain programs where you need to be physically there for your certification, we're 96% online, and I predict in a month we're going to stay online for spring. It's just too costly to bring everybody back.
And are you charging the same amount of tuition as you would if it was in person?
Everyone asks that, yes, and we are. We're at $6,000 a year, and to be honest, you know, people still want to get paid the same amount. So without cutting our main expense, which we probably will take a 10% pay cut. Last recession we did, but I don't see us cutting that. Where I think the students have a good complaint is the fees, and those I think we should look at, because if we're not providing a service, it's really not just to charge fees.
Everything Thomas said, I support. And Thomas, if there's something I can do partner-wise, help you with your navigations. There's a really interesting thing I'm watching happen is that these universities have many software licenses. Not only that, but duplicative licenses and consistent licensing. If they literally got their software licenses in order and were doing bulk buying, et cetera, they'd actually, they would be able to meet the students where they're at. And for example, the idea of paying through apps is so natural to their behavior that when they can't register for classes that way or manage their fellow classmates in an app, they really feel like they're kind of being left behind. Only reason why they're not getting the chance to do that is simply because the university is so far behind on its infrastructure updates that they can't even, they wouldn't even be prepared to conceive the idea that their interaction with the student body is now different, and that they need to make the change as soon as possible. Otherwise, they may lose them forever. And that's the hard part.
Yeah. Dilemma. Harry, go for it.
Hey, Sasha. I want to second and third. Your presentations are always off the charts. Amazing. Thank you very much. I got a question for you. I think it was Red Bull who fired their marketing directors because they posted something for the Black Lives Matters, and the CEO does not want to take a stand. And I like Ken sometimes quotes Michael Jordan saying he likes both Democrats and Republicans because they both buy, running shoes, sneakers. So, what do you recommend to brands? Because they need to be transparent now, especially if you say they need to take a stand, and they make missteps sometimes as well.
Yes.
How do they deal with that?
Harry, I appreciate your question, and I'm asking all of you not to take a stand. I'm asking you to do good work for communities that need it with your core competency. I am not saying go make an internet blast about what you think the world should or should not do. That's like getting massive credit for all your philanthropy. Yeah, all right, it's good. But what would be better is you getting no credit for your philanthropy. So please, everyone, do not try to come up with a platform and decide that your view on racism is blank. You'll never get the words right. You got it? I don't care how late you stay up. I don't care how much you edit the Instagram post. You're never gonna get the words right. So I want you to pull back on that. Now let's acknowledge why the Red Bull marketing executives got fired. Anybody know why Red Bull fired their marketing leaders?
I don't. Do you know why, Sasha?
I have a theory.
Okay, I don't.
Okay, my theory is because Red Bull is an Austrian company, and it has worldviews on that are you don't mingle cultural topics with operating an enterprise. You don't do that. That's just the Austrian way. So whether it was racism or food wars, the Austrian company's philosophy is don't bring in a social cause as our primary dialogue. We are an entertainment company. We're a media company. So it has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter. It has to do with how Austrian companies think about the world. And that's what wasn't understood. The marketing leadership is in California. And if you haven't noticed, California is not Europe, and it's definitely not Eastern Europe.
Valid point. That makes a lot of sense. Let me go to CK. CK, you are unmuted. Go for it. What?
Hey, Sasha, thanks so much. Appreciate you. So inside of that, because you're essentially encouraging them to tap into their courage to actually stand for what they believe in, right? So I'm curious to know from your perspective, how do you encourage them and nudge them to stand for their core values in spite of some contentious circumstances?
Well, I have to say that that's the reason why core values matter, is because they incite dialogue, they force a question. So I'll just be really upfront here and say that when it came to the racial challenges and then the inclusion conversation in my business, everyone believed that we need to start recruiting Black employees. And that unfortunately is just going to make them feel like they're doing something good or that they're meeting some sort of social expectation. And I drew the line and I said, if we do that, that is in fact racist. To identify someone solely because of their choice they didn't make, that in fact is itself racism. You want to hire more Black brand strategists? Go make more Black brand strategists. Get down on the ground and work hard and help people figure out what the fuck brand strategy is and learn how to do it right. And so what I basically had to do was I had to take all of that anger, all of that energy, all this channeled at me as an operator, like, Sasha, you as the operator, you need to make innovation protocol, make a statement about what it means to have Black Lives Matter. And I had to hold everybody down and say, tweeting about this is the easiest thing you could do. The hardest thing that you could do is ask yourself in 20 years, are there more Black brand strategists? And then you can come and ask me to talk about it. So I'm just trying to say that also teaching more Black people to be brand strategists is good for business. It's also good for business. And so it doesn't bite you in the ass or cost you a lot. It actually is good for you in the way that you get known for it. So I understand I'm passionately communicating this, and I recognize that I'm energized and maybe over-energized for some of you, but I want everyone to stop thinking about the big shingle you're gonna put out that says you're trying to save the world. We don't wanna see it. We don't like it. It doesn't make sense to us. The only thing that you, if you want, you get to talk about is what you do with your core capability, your most valuable core capability, how you're helping address social causes with that core capability. That's the only thing that you can't get bitten for. That's what it is that I teach my clients to do.
Great. Let me go to John Sukami. John, you go for it.
Hey, Sasha, thanks so much for your time. So I own a Thai restaurant right by UCLA called Emporium Thai. This year we celebrate our 20 years anniversary. We're doing so well all the way up until the pandemic hit and everything stopped. But because we are part of the community for 20 years, I really pivot and want to give back. So I end up doing the Feed the Frontline program, where we allowing all the people in the community to buy the food from my restaurant. And then I coordinate it with all the hospital worker, the coordinator, and I bring it to, all the doctor, nurses, even the housekeeper at the hospital. And up to date, we raised over 1,000 meals so far, which is, I'm feeling very good. But I think at some point, I wonder how should I approach this from the branding perspective? Should I continue on until the end of the year? Should I, like now instead of having them purchase all the meals, now my website will say, if you purchase 5 meals, I'm gonna match 3. If you do 10, I'll match 5. If you do 25, I match. So kind of partial match. But at some point, I'm carefully thinking, how should I approach this where I feel good, I don't expect much, but I want my brand to be resonated with people. And I think it works. But at some point, do I continue on? Do I stop? Do I change to a different direction? What should I do?
Excellent, John, excellent. Oh my, so congratulations on the 1,000 meals. All of us need to do that kind of giving back. So good job inspiring us. It's interesting that you pivot, you called it a pivot, and actually I don't think that it's a pivot. I think that as an entrepreneur, you innovated to meet the need of the market. And the market was that there were people who are saving our lives, and you wanted to satiate them with the food that you make. That's totally on brand. And I want to answer your question. I hope everybody gets the benefit of understanding this. You're doing all this good work. All of these human beings are being exposed to your organization because of this good work. And who is your market? Those doctors over there in Semel come into your venue every single day, for the last 20 years. And so what you're doing right now. Oh, tell me when you're ready. No worries.
Sorry.
No,
Keep me.
Go ahead.
Run the business. No, John, run the business, man. Run the business. I totally get it. Really quickly, I want to bring us all back to what we were just discussing with John, which is he wants to get more credit for this contribution he's making for this good work, these 1,000 meals. He asked, where does his brand fit in with that contribution? And here's my answer. It is separate from it, but people are experiencing your brand while they're getting these meals, while they're sharing them, while they're picking them up. All of those doctors, nurses, patient caregivers who are your real customer, the people who really pay your rent, you are imprinting your brand on them by doing the good work you're doing. That's all you need to do, is make sure that your brand is showing up there. Don't embellish it, don't make it more shiny, but just make sure that when they know they get the delivery, they know where they're getting the delivery from. I want to make sure you're getting that imprint where necessary. You don't need to do anything else other than the good work you're doing to get the branding points that you're asking for.
Got that? That's awesome. Let me go to James Golding. King James, go for it.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, Sasha. Great to meet you again. Thank you for being the great mind that also looks at the macro, but also the micro as well, and how they identify and interconnect. I just wanted to share, make a comment first and reflection, and then I have a question. So the great panoramic historian Arnold Toynbee, who studied the whole of civilization and the history of mankind, identified that it was actually not the headlines, political and economic headlines, that grab our attention that make history, but actually the daily micro interactions of ordinary people and ordinary folk in the way that they engage. And actually, we have to kind of remind ourselves, and I think you brought that down to, you know, what we actually do. And just extending that into the concept, you mentioned that, and I think we're all aware now that we are entering an age where the interconnectedness and interoperability on a global scale becomes the new normal. What do you see as the key characteristics that would define a true global leader or citizen? And how can we apply these characteristics or attribute in the context of everyday life in our capacity and possibly identity and mission as pioneers of a better normal? In terms of how we're creating history.
He's writing it down. You can't stump him, you know that, right? It's impossible. Go ahead, Sasha. I know you come up with something brilliant. I record all this, Sasha, and I put it into a time capsule for 1,000 years from now, because they're going to go, oh my God, why didn't we remember that?
Nothing I've said is worth that. Just to get us all acquainted with this concept that it's the sort of daily behaviors of the masses that really define history. The day-to-day actions with your neighbor that really define the way that we ultimately live. And I really appreciate that so much, because the headlines make us think that these big things are happening, these big decisions, these big actions, and we're realizing through this crisis that no, that's all just like boogers and toothpicks. It's really not as robust and complete as we thought it was. And so I think that says to all of us, like, holy shit, we've believed all this time that all these organizations had all the wherewithal, the leadership capability, the resources to just best me, to just out-operate me. And we now know that they don't. Not only do they not, what I'm so excited about the global citizen question is, I don't know if you've ever met, probably have, James, but when you're talking to kids that are gamers and they play games with people all over the world, it's amazing what a global citizen they are. They know how what you don't say in certain cultures. They also understand the innuendos and social jokes that happen in other places. That is an international citizen. I always thought that I was, because I travel so much for business. I'm like, oh, well, I've seen these places. No. Until you've had hundreds of hours of dialogue with people from another place, you'll never necessarily know what it means to be global. And what I want to say is that because of right now, because of Zoom and the crisis and everyone showing up in this channel and being able to connect globally, we now have a first in a human lifetime opportunity to all activate as micro businesses and create a global customer base. When I say global customer base, I don't know if you guys have heard about concept. There's a Patreon or OnlyFriends. It's basically where you can pay an individual to do something for you. And it's really interesting, because if you get 10,000 people to follow you in that platform and pay you $1 to do something, you have a livelihood. wow, amazing. We've got this unbelievable capability where every single person can acquire 10,000 customers in the 7 billion people on the planet. And it's kind of incredible because we can also receive those payments. We don't need to like mail it or coordinate with a bank. We can receive the payments. We can manage our documents. We can index and archive all of our good work together. We can collaborate with other people. It's astounding what right now, oh my gosh, for the first time in history is before us. And that's what excites me for us as small businesses, as medium or small businesses, is to recognize that while my university can compete with the Harvards of the world for the first time in history, because of who we are and how we operate.
Let's go to Marcus Bell.
Okay. Hi, Sasha. My name's Marcus Bell, and I'm in the entertainment industry, and I work with celebrity artists and influencers. I'm known as a music producer, and I really care about the upliftment.
Whoa. Wait. You just cut out. So try that again. You unmute yourself. Marcus.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
You really care about the up, and then it cut out.
Yeah, I really care about the upliftment of humanity. And in particular, what's happening for communities of color. And so there are a few things that you mentioned, Sasha, that I appreciate. So one of my mentors retired from the UN, and I've been training with her for about 7 years around systemic social change. And one of the principles is for any kind of change is to start where you are with what you're doing, right? You can institute change right where you are. And so, I hear the wisdom in what you're projecting onto the community. And so, and you pointed out that having diversity inside of organizations actually lead to profitability. And you know, there's a lot of research. I've seen that research as well. And so inside of that context, you mentioned inside of your company, I'm curious as to how you are leveraging communities of colors inside of your company, and if you have taken advantage of that opportunity.
Yes, so I want to appreciate what you're getting from your mentor, which is really interesting to mention as you sort of describe your journey. I'd like to hear more about it, and I suspect that systemic social change is a hard thing to accomplish, and we expected the UN to be able to do it, and they didn't. So I wonder what there's a lot to learn from that. Those grand claims of changing everyone, saving everyone, like it just doesn't work. And no matter where you fall on the political spectrum, you know, we're hearing about like defunding these big global organizations, the WHO, whatever. Well, that's because it doesn't work on the ground. It doesn't work on the day-to-day. So that's why I, as a brand builder, even if my clients are the world's largest companies, I'm literally asking them to, as you just described, Marcus, describe what it is that they can affect in their day-to-day behavior and let that be their cause programming. You asked about my organization and how it sort of manages diversity. Yeah. So what I think is a good answer to your question is that we are diligent about where we teach, speak, and educate to the degree that we have been able to create a large community of all versions of humanity that have come to the world of branding and brand strategy simply because we educate in so many forums. I'll just give you one example that has been really beautiful. Richard Riordan, ex-mayor of Los Angeles, was really known for his sort of community engagement and inclusion. And so Riordan's fellowship, his kind of leave behind, partnered with UCLA Anderson, and they created this Riordan program, which is amazing, where for the last 7 or 8 years, I've been teaching in this inner city outreach advancement program that identifies talent from underrepresented communities that have the potential to become community leaders and puts them in this really rigorous MBA program. So I've been teaching in that program for so long that I now get to look on the internet and see these people like leading amazing shit. And I can feel good about that. I can feel good that I didn't just stop and say, oh my gosh, racism is the topic. What am I going to do this week? I can look back and answer your question, Marcus. For the last 8 years, I put my time and energy into the program that creates more opportunities for the folks that we've discussed. And that's what I run my business to do. That's exactly what we have done and always have done. And I'll tell you, most of my staff is young. They could have called us out in a heartbeat. They could have yanked us. They could have strung us across the rails. And they didn't, because when they looked inside and asked, what has Innovation Protocol said we are doing every year for 14 years? We give away our mastery, our specialty to individuals and nonprofits that are trying to save the freaking world.
Wow, so you're going, wait, you're going right back to the beginning, Sasha. You're in the long game.
It's the only game. There is no other game.
It's the long game. So none of this should be fixed, solved, and repaired right now. There's a long game, and if you think about the long term, that's where all the opportunity comes from. Yeah. Marcus, thank you so much. And guys, I know there's other questions. We just don't have time. Somehow I will drug Sasha again to get him back here next quarter. That's my goal, is that a quarterly thing. We have him hang out with us. I know he's the hottest girl in town. Sasha, they're all in love with you. I'm just letting you know, okay? You're the hot chick here. Everyone wants a piece of Sasha. Sasha, what are you working? Recorded? Yes. What are you working on right now? Right now, are you doing a podcast? Are you doing a book? Are you doing something like that?
I really appreciate that you always ask me that, Ken. And my answer is I should be. You're a good example of this. To answer your question, so everybody gets it, I've been running my business. I have been working 10 to 12 hours a day on screen with my coworkers and my customers. I never wanted to ask for help or forgiveness during this crisis. So I strapped myself down and said, what do you have to do to ride this out successfully? And I'll tell you, I did it and I'm proud of it. And so what I'm doing right now, Ken, honestly, I'm trying to figure out how to hire more people, because what we did worked so well.
Got it. Everyone, unmute your mic and please thank Sasha for giving us his time today. Sasha, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sasha.
We really appreciate every second you gave us.
Awesome.
Thank you, Sasha.
Thank you, Sasha.
Bye, everyone. Bye, all.